Rick's like, come on, man, I'm trying to do Jello shots. You want me to destabilize another Middle Eastern country?
Well, it's no. We're doing digital polygraphs, so it's for like speeding up their hiring processes and shit.
I love how what you just did like segues so good into the episode.
That's why I did it. Yeah. Go ahead, take it away.
But it's not. We didn't do an opening, so like we'll have to do an opening. But this guy we're doing today is like one of the first guys ever to use polygraphs ever in the States.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Now I feel like I'm being watched. That's fucking wild.
It's all simulation. It was building up to this moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is all simulation.
It's like, of course.
Yeah.
An elite team of private detectives.
What if balloons are aliens? Maybe that's the key component we're missing.
Cover-ups.
John's guilty.
Mysteries that need to be solved.
Maybe Mormons need mountains.
Richard, shut up.
I don't know how we should open this. Maybe we'll just do it the way we just had it because it's fine. This is going to be a 3-part series. Every part of the series isn't just a big continuation of the last part, RJ. It's all 3 different subjects, but they all connect. So yeah. So this is going to be our first guy we're talking about today is Eliot Ness. I don't know if you guys know who Eliot Ness is. Do you guys learn about him in the States?
Untouchables, right?
Untouchables, correct.
Yeah.
Did you know? Okay, what Untouchables? What are you talking about? What's Untouchables? Just for
the movie with Kevin Costner.
That's awesome. But did you know there was a TV show in 1950s called The Untouchables, starring?
No, but is it good?
I did not. That's actually fake. There's no such thing as any TV or movies prior to 1993 that are worth watching or actually exist at all. So
I know I'm always looking for old TV shows to watch though, because there's so few of them that are actually good in my opinion. It's like, unless you only like watching it for it being black and white, there's no reason to watch it. But if the storyline is good, which it sounds like they based it off of something real, so it's probably not.
Oh, it's embellished to no end. You'll see why in a couple seconds. This is the I forget what year. It's 1959, I believe, episode of The Untouchables, starring none other than the King of Mysteries himself, Robert Stack.
Oh.
I write you off, Mr. Ness. It's the same when we was kids. There was always some kids that wouldn't play along with the others.
Maybe didn't like your rules.
No, that's not it. It's because you guys are all alike. You're yellow! Last time somebody did that to me, he had an ex.
Was that mustache just Sharpie?
I'm not sure, but it looks like it for sure.
That dude was covered in paint. That's how they did motherfuckers back then. They had to they were like caked in like 6 pounds of powder. You know how hot movie sets used to be? It would be like 112 degrees and like in any given scene in a movie that old.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know what? Let's look at it again because I'm pretty sure you might be right. That's mustache. That's not a real mustache.
Look at both of them. Their faces are way too fucking smooth.
Yeah, Robert Stack is Eliot Ness in the show, and
Amazing.
I will put it in the show notes for everyone. But I do love that our mystery man was in this fucking TV show for like 4 or 5 years too.
Wow.
Yep. That's real, dude. I think that's real.
You off, Mr. Ness.
Wait till he gets slapped in the face.
Some kids that wouldn't play along with the others.
All right.
Maybe didn't like your
Doesn't
rules.
quiver.
No, that's not it. It's because you guys are all alike.
No, it's got.
You're yellow!
It's got texture.
Oh, it does have a little bit of texture.
It's fake
definitely
as fuck.
fake. Yeah.
Last time somebody did that.
It looks like they took it off someone's eyebrow. Like, hurry up with the mustache. Hurry up with the eyebrow. We need a mustache.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely like cat hair or something. Just gelled to shit.
Yeah, so that's cool. We're doing a 3-part series. Eliot Ness. Next 2 weeks we'll do Al Capone, and then the week after that we'll do The Butcher of Kingsbury Run, or the Cleveland Torso Murders, which we actually talked about when we were doing Black Dahlia, how they thought it was connected to the Cleveland Torso Murders. And I said, I'll do a full episode, and that's what got me to this. Let's do all of them. So, you know, the Untouchables part of it. What is do you guys learn this in school, like who Eliot Ness is and shit like that?
God.
I'm curious.
Well, technically, all American school is movies with Kevin Costner. So we learn about history by watching The Untouchables. We learn about global warming by watching Waterworld. You learn about
It's a good movie.
love by watching The Bodyguard.
And what about you learn about the U.S. postal system from the postman?
Yes, that's right. Yep, that's how that functions. We learn about how to get away with murder by watching Mr. Brooks. Running out of Kevin Costner movies. Oh, something with Indians and Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, you guys just learned. It wasn't that bad. Look at this movie.
Yeah, no. More like Trail of Smiles.
Yeah. All right. Well, did you hear about him before, Getz?
I want to say we probably were taught about him, but I truly remember nothing.
Nothing?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, you remember the Untouchables movie then. That movie's hilarious if you've ever watched it. It's got some very key scenes in hilarity. Like there's a part where Kevin Costner kicks in a prohibition door and he's like, let's do some good. And then they just bust a place where there's nothing. And it's like very well done. The whole scene, he just like disappoints himself. We didn't do any good.
I actually don't know if I've ever seen The Untouchables either.
It's a good one. I like it. It's a good gangster movie.
I'm adding it to my watch list right now.
If you don't know much about him, what most people would know is that he's just like the police officer that took down Al Capone, prohibition lawman, booze narc. Great. Seems like a cool guy. Eliot Ness, calling the cops on you because you're drinking, or being the cop that stops you because you're drinking. Cool. Al Capone wasn't actually taken down by him. He was taken down by tax evasion, which everybody kind of knows too, I think. But he did have a part in taking Al Capone down. And that's just the early part of his life. He had a whole life after that people don't really know much about. I didn't. I don't know if everybody else doesn't. I just thought of him as the Al Capone guy. He was done that by the time he was 31 years old. That's the interesting thing. So Ness was a big American hero, but he actually died a drunk and penniless. To me, that's hilarious and ironic that he was the prohibition guy and died a drunken fucking mess. Let's see what happened to this dry, drinkless detective that turned him into a deadbeat drunk. I did it. I alliterated for you guys.
I did an illiterate.
I did illiterate. Eliot Ness was born April 19th, 1903 in Chicago to his Norwegian immigrant parents, bakery-owning parents, Peter Ness and Emma King. Has anybody been to Chicago before? I've never been to Chicago.
I have not.
I don't think so.
Pretty famous city. I was just curious. I was going to see if some of these places make sense to anyone. I don't know. They don't really to me. They lived in the Kensington neighborhood of Chicago, which is apparently in Chicago's South Side, which was at the time, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be a bad part of town back then too. Everyone drank there, even in the early 1900s when it was illegal. A lot of places just like banned drinking, like a lot of other districts. So the only place that didn't ban saloons was Kensington. So like that's where everyone went to drink. So it was called Bumtown. A nickname for it was Bumtown. It's where all the bums go to drink.
Nice.
I like old school 50s like stuff. You going down to Bumtown, eh? Gonna go get drunk. I don't know why I like 50s. It's funny. Elias was the youngest of 5. And between him and his next oldest sister was 10 years. That's a pretty big age gap. That being said, Elliot's dad, what's your age gap between your brothers? It was like, is it 10 years when I was writing this, RJ?
It is 15.
Okay, it's not that huge, I guess. But you were pretty much out of the house by the time they were around. Like you were hanging out with their friends.
They were babies when I was around. Yeah, like, but they what do you call it? Probably by the time they were 4. Yeah. So
it's just an interesting. I don't have my brother's 18 months away from me. For me, it's like fought with them and grew up with them. I don't have that giant age gap. So, anyways,
no, yeah, it's borderline an Irish twin situation.
I gotcha. It's just because they make a lot out of it more than I don't know. Maybe this appeals to you. So Elliot's dad, Peter, was like 50 when Eliot was born, and he'd already raised 4 other kids. So he was like over having kids. I think he was a whoopsie daisy. You know what I mean? Should have pulled out. But we don't have contraception. This is 1903. Peter and Eliot didn't really speak much during Eliot's childhood. Really, actually, the rest of Peter Ness's life, they didn't really talk. It's not like they hated each other. It's just Eliot used to say that his dad didn't talk much, but when he did, he listened because he knew whatever he was going to say was important. So, like, I don't know, one of those dads. You know what I mean? Just like sit, drink, and like prophetic words once a year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't convince me any father in the early 1900s was any kind of good.
Yeah, it's probably Beating was like you were good if you beat your kids. Like, oh, you're training them properly.
Right.
It's true. Elliot was more of like a mama's boy. Even into adulthood, he lived at home and called his mom if he was going to be late from work. Like he lived there till he was 27, which nowadays that doesn't sound crazy, but like in the 20s, you were like married off by the time you were 15. You know what I mean? Like you were out of the house with a job in the factory, like super young. So for him to live at home was a little weird. All of her oldest children were out of the house, so she coddled Elliot basically. She really wanted to have more kids around the house. She missed having them around. Elliot got what the baby usually gets, is like a way more attention than the other kids. As a kid, also, Elliot used to take pride in his appearance and try to dress better than everyone on purpose. Like that was his big thing. I like to dress up, wear a suit. I'm 10. I look really good. See? And he loved to read. Elliot was kind of a depressing loner as a kid, which I found kind of fun.
Yeah, he could read. Fucking losers could do that in the 1900s. Fucking nerds. You don't play stickball, which is the classic 1900s game where we crack huge sticks over each other's heads until we pass out. You fucking read.
Who's Sherlock who? Loser.
Yeah. Here, eat stick, bitch.
Crack. He would have ups and downs. That's what people say. He had blue moods, is what the like I read a book called Eliot Ness, The Rise and Fall of an American Hero. And Douglas Perry, the biographer, describes it as if Eliot mood was always blue, rarely seeing him in moments of joy, which, okay.
I love old-timey euphemisms for like depression.
He's blue.
Anxiety. Well, he's got the shy boy jitters. Call him a little shy fly. It's just ain't nothing a few good games of stickball can't fix.
Yeah, so Elliot was, since he was like that, depressing all the time, he'd rather sit by himself, read Sherlock Holmes books, than hang out with the other kids at lunch. Ness attended Christian Finger High School and graduated in 1920. He really loved football, but never tried out for the team, just because he was like way more of a lone wolf. He didn't want to play any team sports. He's super athletic. He really was. So Ness, what he did is got into tennis, to which he excelled, which I find hilarious. Tennis is such a funny sport to me.
Also because it's like partially his name.
Oh, Ness. God, that took me way too long.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I was relishing in that. I was like, oh man, really?
Oh God.
Eliot Ness. There's something there. I'm not gonna try to knit it together right now.
That's okay. Yeah, so he loved being the best at anything. So if he couldn't be the best, he wouldn't join like the football team. He was the best tennis player in his school because they said he would just at lunch, if he wasn't reading, he would just sit at a wall and just bounce a tennis ball with a racket off the wall all day long, just for practice. And here's a good one. He used to sell suits. Like his after school job was to go like sell suits at the tailor down the street. And he would sit in front of his mirror at night and just practice his sales pitch for these fucking suits all night until he like was the best salesman. Like he wanted to outsell the salesman that sell like all day long of suits, just like on his 2 hours after school. That was his goal. Never did it though. Never really.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Elliot had
once you see some pictures, we might all agree on that. You'll see that later in life, even though Elliot rarely wore a gun, he was the best shooter in the division because that's all he did was practice until he got better than everyone. Elliot was one of the best students in his school for the same reason, to try to be the best. His strive for greatness was well known to everyone around him, even as a kid. Southside kids were also tough and mean because of where they lived, and Elliot had that also in him. Because he was pretty big and strong, people didn't really mess with him much, but they knew not to mess with him because they knew he could beat the crap right out of them. Elliot graduated high school with top 10% of his class and decided before going to college he was going to get a job. So he spent a year working at the Pullman plant before heading to university. Pullman, just before this, had a giant strike, and it like kind of divided the community a little bit. So Elliot kind of walked into like a shitty situation to begin with. And I was like, what's this big, like, what are they making? What's this Pullman company? They just made luxury train cars. So everyone was making a big fucking stink out of like train cars. I love it. I love different time, like Today, everyone's like, oh, fuck it. We have enough train cars. We're good. Nobody would be that mad. Wouldn't divide a community. That's all I'm saying. Work didn't agree with him. He didn't like the situation he was in. So he said, okay, fine, I'll go to school. So in 1921, Ness enrolls at the University of Chicago to study political science, commerce, and business admin. And I didn't say business. I said bidness. I don't know why.
Business admin. That's the.
He means
This
business.
is different. Yeah.
After graduating college, top 10% of his class in 1925, he began his career working at the Retail Credit Company of Atlanta's Chicago Territory office. So his job was basically like doing background checks for the purpose of credit. Super fun.
It'd be a lot easier if you had some polygraph
Yeah,
software.
it would be. This is boring to Ness. He wanted to do something more exciting. So in 1927, Ness applied for a job working at the Chicago branch of the U.S. Treasury Department. This was after his brother-in-law, who was named Alexander Jamie, and I fucking hate first names. Drive me crazy. You know they're like a rapist, a secret rapist. If you have two first names, date raper.
That's a non-controversial opinion. Yeah, we're saying it right now. Private dicks. If you have two first names, you're a fucking rapist.
100%. Or you beat dogs to the last inch of their lives.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
one of the two.
Well, could you? I mean, you could probably be both. You could rape dogs to within an inch of their
That's
life.
if you have a lasty. If your name's like McTavish Johnson or something, then
Oh shit, McTavish.
you fuck dogs to death for sure.
Oh yeah, dude. Actually, that is a dude, Graham McTavish. He's an actor.
See what I'm saying? That guy's fucking dogs right now, right on set. They can't
Shit.
put dogs on that guy's
Oh, Graham.
set. Anyways, this is after he applied for the U.S. Treasury Department because his brother-in-law, Alexander Jamie, rapist, who was already a member of the Prohibition Investigation Bureau, convinced him to join law enforcement. With the help of his older brother-in-law pulling strings, Eliot got the job and became an agent of the U.S. Treasury Department. He liked this work, but he wanted to be more hands-on, not just sitting in an office like piling through papers. And he wanted to work with his brother-in-law. So by 1928, Ness worked hard to be transferred to the Prohibition Bureau, working for the rapist Alexander Jamie.
Wait, doesn't Alexander kind of count as a last name though too?
Oh no, he's got a first
So
name.
wait, he's got last name,
first name, first name, last name, first name. Uh-oh. God damn it. What does he do? What is he doing to people? He's making dogs fuck him to death.
the Uno reverse dog rapist.
All right. Yeah, so he's starting to work at the Prohibition Bureau for Alexander Jamie. Jamie was put in charge of the Prohibition Jamie was put in charge of the Prohibition Bureau briefly, and Eliot was under his command for a little while, which was a nice change for Eliot. Like I said, he wanted to get hands-on and be in the city. And Alexander Jamie was more like of a father figure to Eliot than his father actually was. Like, he was like 20s when he was a kid, and he like brought him out and shot him how to shoot, taught him how to drive. And he also instilled the famous what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong values that Ness was known for. He didn't really like to bend too much in his earlier life anyway. He also helped Eliot through nepotism to advance his career, but we're not getting into that one too much. He didn't skip any grades. He just did because he was really good. Around this time, Eliot met a girl named Edna Staley. She was Alexander Jamie's stenographer, which they kept calling her a stenographer. I'm like, it's a secretary. Why are we going back to 1950? She was a stenographer, and she was around the department all the time. And they didn't really, I shouldn't say they met there, but they knew each other as kids. They're from the same part of Chicago, like South Side, but they never really spoke to each other or knew each other as kids. So her and Eliot ended up being sweet on each other and spent many late night hours at the office together. So soon they began to date. And in 1929, Ness went back to university to take a graduate course in criminology. This course was taught by a guy named August Vollmer, who was a noted police reformer and the chief of the Berkeley Police Department. Now, Vollmer's big thing with police reform was that he wanted the job of a police officer to be more professionalized, so they'll be taken more seriously when they're applying the law, not just hiring like bigger and stronger guys to beat up the other big, strong guys. He wanted to like get rid of dirty cops, taking bribes, beating suspects, and he wanted to bring scientific method and investigation techniques into the police force as well. Eliot was inspired by this guy, and he shared his Vollmer's ideals. Really, actually, kind of made Vollmer's ideals a reality in a later part of his life. This guy started really early with Eliot and got him hooked on being a better cop than what were out there already. And I'm not going to say 1929 cops were good at all. I'm just saying they were worse before that. That's all.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they were better because maybe they had all the segregation rules that they could have so that black people weren't in a position to be murdered by them so freely.
Eliot, I'll talk about this later, but Eliot literally hires black police officers to go patrol black neighborhoods because he's too scared. It's just
fucking incredible. Being so racist that you're progressive.
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. It like spun itself around like
damn.
Yeah, so Vollmer was a big influence on his life. 1929 is also the year Eliot and Edna marry. I was 27 years old. Like I said, that's when he finally moved out of the house. Eliot and Edna had aspirations of children, but they never had any. Spoiler alert. In Chicago, they have a normal and loving enough life together. I find this kind of sad that the book, The Untouchables, which the movie is based on, the TV show is based on, is kind of an autobiography written by Eliot, but it's like super not well done at all. Like Eliot did it super later in his life and he forgot a lot of people's names. So like the guy who helped him write it just like filled in a bunch of blanks. And then Eliot dies before it even comes out. So there's no way of even checking it. So there's Edna's not even mentioned. It's his like later wife that's mentioned the whole time. So Edna kind of gets lost in history, which is kind of sad. She gets talked about in like podcast, deep dive podcasts and shit. But if you just read The Untouchables, you'd think like there's no Edna.
Yeah. Can you imagine like that's all your life amounts to is as a footnote on podcasts everywhere? I would rather be completely unknown.
Actually, she said that later in life. She was glad that she kept the Ness last name. Anyways, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, she's actually happy she was forgotten. Ness climbed quickly within the ranks of the Bureau of Prohibition. He was a good agent and got a lot done, but it was also because of nepotism. I'm just going to keep saying that because Alexander Jamie is a suicidal dog force fucker. Nepotism's like nothing new. It's been around for a long time. It's still around to this day, but like most of the time it's shitty.
Oh yeah. I was watching 50 Shades of Grey for the first time, which is one of the most awful movies I've ever seen in my life.
Shocker.
Well, I mean, like I had like I'm like what like at least like I don't know if you've ever watched like Twilight and shit. Like they're like at least like hilarious for a lot of ways that they're bad. But like you get why like it appealed to like 13-year-old girls. You know what I mean? 50 Shades of Grey was for adults, and it is the most like all right, I'm using a born in the 1990s pass. The most retarded fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
born in the 1990s pass.
Yeah, like dude, it is such a dog shit film, and one of the lead character is the worst actress I've ever seen. Her name's Dakota Johnson, and I was like, I've never seen her in anything else.
Yep.
Don Johnson's daughter. And Melanie Griffith's daughter. Yeah.
And Melanie Griffith's daughter. Phenomenally good looking as well. Like that helps too to get that. Like, you know what I mean? If it's not like it was Joe Pesci and fucking Rail Perman's fucking kids getting, like, you know what I mean? It's not like it was Danny DeVito.
That would be awesome.
If she was, I mean, it would be, but I mean, it's the same.
That would be so, can you imagine what those kids would look like? That would be so cool.
Have you seen them? They exist.
You mean Danny DeVito's kids?
That's what I meant. Danny DeVito,
oh, I thought you meant specifically Joe Pesci and Rhea Perlman. I'm like, that sounds odd. They sound like they'd be the most annoying sounding people in the world.
That's probably right.
I would pay money just to listen to them talk about like fucking Pokemon cards or something. Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, nepotism is usually a bad thing. Like from my experience, it's fucking terrible. Like the Dakota Johnson example is perfect example. That was, yeah. Oh my god. But in Elliot's case, it was actually good. He was probably a perfect guy for the Prohibition Bureau. He is exactly what Jamie Alexander was looking for. He knew how competitive he was. He knew how he wanted to be the best. And this is exactly what he was counting on. Chicago is one of the worst cities in America for bootlegging. And Alexander, they just like arrested his boss for murder charges. Like that's why he was in charge. And he needed to get like people that he could trust. And Elliot was one of them. A lot of other people, though, thought Elliot was like trash, like trailer trash, because most of the people in the Bureau went to Ivy League schools. And they're like, who's this University of Chicago graduate, Jamie Alexander? Send your dog over when he's done. I'm just going to lean heavy into them fucking dogs now.
Yeah, no, it's a great bit.
Yeah, so I just love how it's all these Ivy League guys be looking down on the guy that actually like Ness is from the south side of Chicago. What a that guy's dirt. You know what I mean? But you're fighting mafia people. Like you probably want people to help. So the fight against bootleggers, corruption, and the mafia wasn't going well at all. Other agents knew that the Volstead Act was going to be repealed soon, which was prohibition. Like they all saw it coming because no one liked it. It was the most hated thing ever. So no one took the job seriously. That was a big part of the Prohibition Bureau. Everyone was just like, it'll go away soon. Let's just chill. Let it happen. And prohibition statistically wasn't stopping people drinking in the least. There's stats out there that said it made people drink more after prohibition, which there you go. Good job. So especially in Chicago, late 20s, early 30s, like I said, it's fifth largest city in the U.S., highest crime rate at the time. Gangsters were running alcohol at availability more than water. Gangsters were basically just running the city. The mayor at the time was corrupted by the mafia. He was like in the mafia's pockets, this mayor. And no one really seemed to care in Chicago. Everyone was like kind of cool with it because it was just booze. Everyone was a good time. Al Capone kind of had like a Robin Hood thing about him, like steal from the rich, give to the poor. And who cares about this prohibition? Fuck the government kind of deal. Ness cared. Okay. Others did honestly, but Ness cared the most.
How does that sound like some kind of insurance plan?
Yeah, it's true. It's just the way he was. He just, in his earlier life, he's such a fucking wanker. I don't not like this guy. He was integral in taking down like a few bootleggers in the first year and a half as an agent, going undercover. He did his job, just an agent, whatever. But in 1930, after a couple of years of doing undercover work and boots on the floor, busting up bootlegging operations, President Hoover and Attorney General William D. Mitchell devised a plan to take down Al Capone. Al Capone was the head of the mafia who was in charge of bootlegging operations in Chicago. I'm sure you guys have heard of him.
Yeah, no, I went to Alcatraz actually once. That's probably where I learned the most about Al Capone.
That makes sense because he was in there for.
I know what everybody knows about him, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's enough, really, because he's going to be the subject for our next episode. We really, for this episode, only need to know Prohibition bootlegger guy. His role in pulp culture gives us enough of an idea. So anyways, Hoover and Mitchell's plan involved making a small group of Prohibition agents to specifically attack Capone at his bootlegging operations, like take down a bunch of his stills and stuff like that. And the feds were already investigating Capone on the money side, trying to get him on tax evasion, but Hoover and Mitchell wanted a quicker way to take down the kingpin. So the Chicago prosecutor directly in charge with both the prohibition and income tax investigations, named George E.Q. Johnson, chose 27-year-old Eliot to lead a small team to take down Capone. That's how good Eliot was at his job. 27 years old, they're like, you're in charge.
I was gonna say 27.
It's fucking wild.
Capone's
only like 33. Like he's young too. He's not like an old man.
But how young did people die back then? Was he like 2 years away from death?
39.
Or? Yeah. People would probably have a lot less life expectancy, but still, you still have the first part of your life.
Yeah, but I mean, if they got him when he was an old man, like, yeah, fuck it.
Who, Capone?
Yeah.
No, they got him in his 30s.
Yeah, but I mean,
young.
Yeah, if you die at 35, like, he had a good run.
He died when he was near 50, 48, I think. We'll talk about him next episode, but yeah, he died later in life.
I guess like shit with life expectancy is all just because of like averages and stuff. Like there's plenty of history of like people living to be old as shit.
Yeah, for sure. We just know more.
Yeah, I guess it's mostly thrown by like infant mortality or something, which is like still a problem, but like I can't fathom how high it was. Like people get pregnant and they're just like, oh.
But there's also like people say that. I hear what you're saying. People do that all the time with me. Like they go, but there's also like people worked in factories, got cancer, like
Yeah.
lung cancer and shit. Like it was way different. We just know more. Diet was way worse.
Oh yeah, some fucking Upton Sinclair shit where like somebody's head falls into a sausage grinder. They just don't stop the line. They're like, no, we had a quota. All he did was add to today's weight.
What he did was just a favor. So shut up and get to work. Elliot's in charge of the Capone squad is what they're calling it. What's this part is like disputed. Most people think that like legend of this goes that Ness gets to handpick his team from agents all across the country, the best and the brightest. He had stipulations. They all had to be younger than 30, unmarried, and unwilling to take a bribe from the Capone syndicate. Law enforcement in Chicago and all across the country really was very corrupt, and Ness had, like I said, the what's right is right attitude. He was incorruptible, and eventually he found another 5 officers who he trusted to be the same. The 6 men, and then there was 4 others added on later on to the team, were later nicknamed the Untouchables by the media because none of them would ever take a bribe. There's a story where one of Capone's men said that he'd pay off Ness $2,000, 2 crisp $1,000 bills a week, Mr. Ness, if you just look the other way, turn the other cheek.
Wait, do you not actually know American money, or
Apparently there was $1,000 bills. This is from the biography.
shut the fuck up?
Yeah, I'm not making that up.
Do I just not know American money?
I don't think they exist anymore. Weren't they taken out of?
They definitely can't exist. I mean, they're not. Well, also, I don't think I'm rich enough to have a stack of $1,000 bills. So maybe they do, and it's just not for me. Oh, I just have too much money. I need bigger bills.
It's taking up too much room.
Yes. Not a problem I've had.
I can't fit all my stacks of hundreds anymore. I bought a king-size bed.
Yeah. I need something that's worth 10 times this.
That's why he bought a bigger bed so he could put all of his $1,000 bills inside the bed.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
He didn't have
Yeah.
enough room for him.
That's the hybrid. It's memory foam and cash.
Yeah, so he was offering him $2,000 a week to not say anything. Eliot earned about $3,800 a year as a prohibition agent. So that was like his wage every half month. You know what I mean? Like, so that part of the story is not exactly true according to the biography. Despite what Eliot Ness and Oscar Fraley wrote in his biography. Fraley's the guy who wrote the Untouchables with him. Ness did not get to handpick his team, although he did want the best of the best. He did want them under 30, unmarried and incorruptible. The problem was that each federal department that had an agent that fit into Ness's requirements was for some reason unavailable. I'm pretty sure this was commanding officers being like, yeah, no, you can have the fucking guy in the corner. You know what I mean? You're not getting my best guy. So really what's funny about this is none of the members of the Untouchables were under 30 or unmarried, except for Ness. He was not only the boss of the later called Untouchables, but he was the youngest. He wasn't the only single agent, but a lot of them had wives. And Ness didn't even trust that they were unbribable. Like Ness was known to follow his own men around to make sure they weren't taking money on the side. So he'd like, all right, guys, time to go. And then he'd put his hat on, like, wait for them to leave. I'm not following you.
Yeah, no, dude, fuck Eliot Ness. I think this is all fucking scam. Like, somebody's just covering for themselves because of the nepotism. This guy was a fucking moron. And, like, clearly, like, I mean, not, I don't mean he's a moron because it sounds like he has autism, because I do, but that doesn't make people morons. I think he just also was extremely irritating. Like, I want a team, all of them boys. I want all boys on my team, and they can't have girlfriends, and they will be my age. I want boys my age, and
you're right. He sounds.
And they will be good boys, and I
to-
can fuck them.
yeah, they have to like Roblox. They have to like Roblox.
Ahead of his time.
Yeah, so he'd follow around his agents and send other guys that he trusted to go follow them. And he had to fire a couple people before he had a good team. So he relatively trusted. He still like would look into them eventually too. So Ness had a job ahead of him, and he wanted the best of the best because he knew how dangerous Capone was. Just a few years earlier, Capone had lined up all of his enemies against a brick wall and executed them with Tommy guns. This is eventually nicknamed the St. Valentine's Massacre, which we will get into extensively next episode. But know this, everybody knew that Capone was a fucking psycho and he wasn't to be trifled with. And Eliot Ness put himself into a lot of danger starting this. That actually did happen. The two $1,000 bill thing. That one's a real event. But as soon as it happened, Ness called the press. So he wanted to tell them, like, this guy just tried to bribe me and I can't be bribed. I am Eliot Ness. Our guys aren't going to be bribed. So that's how he got the Untouchables name. They started it right after he just like sold out the guy for trying to bribe him. Over the next 6 months, Ness sets up an elaborate wiretapping program on the Capone organization. After that, the raids on Capone's operations were plentiful. The media caught wind, called them Untouchables. Not many historians actually think the Untouchables were actually unbribable, though. The last surviving member of the Untouchables, a guy named Albert Wolf, died in 1998 at the age of 95. And in an interview he did for People magazine in 1987, he claimed that his nickname was Wallpaper because he took everything else but. So they're just stealing. They just didn't show Eliot they were stealing. They're like just smart enough not to show the fucking autistic kid they're not stealing.
Also, just to touch on something a little bit earlier,
Yeah, sure.
$1,000 bills, totally real, discontinued in 1943, but they did feature President Cleveland's face. He is not a handsome man, but real legal tender. And if you have one, you could go and spend it legally. But there's supposed to only
they're not out of circulation.
they think there's like something like 165,000 of them out there, but the bulk of them are in like museums or with collectors. But I mean, they don't know where all of them are. So somebody somewhere has probably got one stuffed somewhere.
Somewhere in Florida, underneath some foundation of some house Capone owned before he died.
Probably. Oh my God! Do you know how much money? Yeah, like that is probably fucking out there.
Oh, so much. Just like all the like, what's his name from Colombia? There buried so much money, forgot where it was.
Yep.
I can't remember his name.
Yep. Yeah, he was losing more to rats eating it. Escobar,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, Pablo.
Talking
That's
about?
right. Yeah, Pablo Escobar. Yeah. People still go out and treasure hunt for it. So, like, I'm sure Capone had some put away somewhere. He was making $9 million a year or something at his peak in 19.
Do you think you had to launder that back then? Like, were they that good at tracking serial numbers? Probably not.
I doubt it.
If there were serial numbers, you know what I mean? Like,
well, they didn't have fucking computers, so like anybody would just like, what are you gonna tell some like guy like living in fucking rural Oklahoma that he can't take $1,000 bill?
God, that used to be. Oh my God, that would have been such a great time to like live in. Could you imagine like? You just don't have money and you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna print some.
All you can think of is in terms of like, man, I could do so much crime.
Oh my God. Oh my
We're
God.
so
You could. Yeah, you could just break
I would
the
crime
fucking
the shit out of
system.
everything.
God damn.
the untouchable thing, it didn't matter that like they weren't untouchable. I think because Eliot Ness was part of his plan to use the media to his advantage. It was part of August Vollmer's idea of like sharing with the media will actually help you with investigations a lot of the time. He liked the name being called Untouchable because Capone would see that on the news and think like, oh shit, these guys I can't even bribe. So he would use it like as a way of like preventing Capone from approaching his guys even to come give him money, which I kind of think is smart.
I thought it was just because he didn't like to be touched.
Or he would really wanted to be touched, but he was just untouchable.
We're called the Untouchables because don't touch me.
Don't touch me or him or him or him or him. We're all the same grade.
I am. Don't touch me or any of the other boys in my club that are the same age as me, especially not while we're reading.
Now, on to page 5, boys. Ness was all over the papers at the time. He loved, he would bust into fucking Capone operations and just take an interview. He talked about it being a part of his like campaign against Capone, but like he loved the limelight, dude. He was all over it. That was another part of the boat using the news that he liked. If they keep reporting that we're busting down these doors, criminals are going to think they're unstoppable. Even if they're like undermanned, underfunded, they can't be stopped. Look at every day there's new bootlegging operation getting taken down. Which I actually think is actually a good tactic for, especially back then when most media was disseminated through a newspaper. You know what I mean? You didn't really have like guy on the street being like, nah, it's not happening. Yeah, he started to adopt more modern investigative techniques to help take down the Capone syndicate. Like I said earlier, started wiretapping, which wasn't a thing back then for police forces. They had it a little bit during World War One. They were wiretapping some stuff. They just kind of like had some guys in the military that knew how to do it.
Just like actually tap the fucking wire.
Yeah, literally, that's what they would do. Go
Yeah.
right into it, just put fucking lines up. But they just didn't really, because it's a big mess of wire, especially a big city like that. It would be, they had the old operators, and they just like flick you to switch you to whatever. So you'd have to know where actually each switch actually went to. Like he literally had to find a guy from the army to join the Untouchables to be able to do this, because none of them could have figured it out without that guy. So yeah, this hadn't been used in policing, and like Capone knew nothing about it. So gangsters were giving up locations left, right, and center. It was pretty fucking easy for Eliot actually to like track down new bootlegging operations and stills and do raids, dump liquor. Many of Capone's breweries shut down. After his first big bust, Eliot was obsessed. He said the obsession with stopping crime ruined him for like a big part of his life. He just really that rush, chasing that dragon, man. Got to get that rush again. He always found himself at the front of a big bust, even if he was older or shouldn't have been there at all. He was just ready to be the guy kicking in the door. No gun.
I love that.
Scary. That's a scary thing to do, man. Like, Al Capone's shooting people in front of you, not bring a gun to the scene and be the first guy in the door. Work 70-hour work weeks, many risks to his life. Eliot started becoming the first hero of the Prohibition police. Until Ness, Prohibition had been hated, still kind of was hated, but Ness was slowing down Capone, who was a known gangster, a scary guy. Like I said, many people loved Capone for being like the modern day Robin Hood, but like it was bullshit. And Capone's strong arm tactics were the favorite of the other people who wanted to have power in the city, the politicians and the police officers. They actually wanted to run the city for once. They didn't want to be under the thumb of a fucking psycho. In just over a year and a half, Eliot and the Untouchables accomplished a lot. Ness's raids destroyed over $500,000 worth of bootlegging operations, and these raids cost Capone in excess of $9 million in lost revenue, and that's 1931 money. I didn't even look the conversion. It's a lot, though. By June 1931, Ness had put an indictment on 5,000 violations of the Volstead Act. I talked about this a lot in Unethical. If anybody wants to go watch the Sourdough episode, I don't feel like talking about the Volstead Act much. It's just Prohibition. You guys know what Prohibition was? They stopped booze in the States because of World War I, and then they just kept it going because people were like, my husband drinks too much. We got to stop getting drink in this city. He's using all our money. And then they actually did it, and it was hated. During this time, Volstead Act or Prohibition made drinking legal. Ness's job was to enforce this law. The indictment was prevented from coming to trial by federal judge James H. Wilkerson because they decided that going after Capone on his tax evasion charges was a better case and would more likely end with Capone in jail. The bootlegging charges were to be their backup plan. Now, in reality, it was the Depression, and everyone hated the Volstead Act. The DA was worried that they wouldn't be able to get a sympathetic jury trying to stop the guy from getting their booze. You know what I mean? Like, let's put that guy in jail. The only guy who's fun anymore. So they thought it would be a better case to go the tax evasion way because the government had no money and give us the money so we can get more services for everyone.
That's how the founding fathers should have set it up. Like, if a drug dealer gets arrested, when he goes to court, it should have to be everybody that buys from him. And he has to really do something heinous, for the people and of the people to get convicted.
He just really want illegal shit to happen. I like it. He would have gotten
No. I mean, like, the people, you might, buy illegal alcohol from someone, but they got to really prove that you did something like that the people find bad, right? Like,
isn't that what laws are? The general consensus of things that are people find bad?
Well, that's the idea, but you vote for representatives. Those representatives come up with things that trickle down.
I mean, I'm not talking about like, that. I mean, like in a broad sense, like, yes, obviously, I don't think the Patriot
I mean, how many
Act-
laws have you contributed to the country?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, there's laws I've reinforced, like the fact that I was drinking and driving for a long time, and how dangerous that was. I think that was a good example of why that should remain illegal. Did I write it? No. But I proved it was a good idea.
Did I highlight it for everyone who needed to see this? Yes. They went for him for tax evasion. And while Capone's in jail awaiting trial, Ness found out about his first shortcomings as the leader of the squad. They found out that the Capone syndicate had taken a page out of the Untouchables playbook. Their office would be wiretapped by the mafia dudes. So they got all fucking wiretapped after.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he touched himself.
I'm touchable. All the work he'd been doing while Capone was in jail was being listened to. So after Capone was captured and put on trial, the arrests had been harder and harder to come by, and now Ness knew why. Eliot talked about how embarrassed he was about this, even later in life. The first time Ness had ever seen Capone with his own very eyes in real life was when Capone walked into fucking court. Until then, he never saw him, not once.
I'm sorry. I hung up because you said with his own very eyes. His eyes were very eye.
I mix up words. Yeah, so that was the first time he actually ever saw him. And on October 17th, 1931, Capone was convicted of 3 counts of tax evasion and given 11 years in prison. Ness was one of the few federal agents that traveled with Capone from the Cook County Jail to the Dearborn Station for transport to the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. This was the only time the two men actually spoke. One time. It was in a prison transfer vehicle, so who knows what they actually said to each other, but I'm sure it would have been fun to hear. Just Eliot like, see, I told you all my friends would take you down.
Yeah.
Dummy.
Capone, like, with handcuffs, like, I'm going to touch you. I'm going to do it. Come on, Nessie.
But I'm untouchable.
You can't touch me. You can't touch me.
That's the whole car, right? It was just them jumping around the back seat, trying not to get. So after Capone's arrest and sent to jail, the press was all over Eliot even more than they were before. He was the hero they needed for the Prohibition movement. Fan mail starts flooding in. The press made Eliot and the Untouchables bigger than what they were. Eliot and the Untouchables got so much press. They gave out an absorbent amount of interviews to the papers. Just because Capone is in jail didn't mean the Untouchables were done arresting his men. But now the gangsters were all in hiding, and he was just wiretapped. So Eliot changed the attitude in Chicago. He actually did. Gangsters weren't running around like they ran the city. Eliot kept up the pressure. So after Capone's arrest, Ness thought it was going to be a great feeling. He was like, I finally did it. He got a blue moment. He felt empty. It's not as what he expected. He wanted it to be a happy moment. Made him sad. And as soon as Capone was put behind bars, the Untouchables were disbanded. That was the end of them. Ness gets a big promotion. He ends up becoming the lead investigator for the entire Prohibition squad, not just the Capone squad. Didn't matter, though, because by this time, they all knew that the Volstead Act was going to be repealed within the year or so, and they were going to be out of a job. So for the next 2 years, year and a bit, people just kept getting laid off or transferred to different departments until it was just Eliot by himself in the Prohibition Bureau. Until 1933, when the act was officially repealed. Now, there's still a few like liquor laws left, like bootlegging still existed, but it wasn't exciting for Eliot anymore. And he was transferred to the alcohol beverage unit, later renamed the alcohol tax unit. So after the Volstead Act was repealed, Eliot just became a footnote. People started to forget about him pretty quickly. He was a hero for a law that no one actually liked. It's just what it was. Eliot and Edna had to move to Cincinnati while he was reassigned to the Alcohol Tax Bureau. And what Eliot really wanted to do was join the Bureau of Investigation, which later turned into the FBI. Now, in the biography that I read, Eliot Ness, The Rise and Fall of American Hero, says the reason Eliot didn't get into the Bureau was because the young upstart Bureau of Investigations guy was named J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover knew all about Eliot Ness, and he knew about how popular it was, and he was afraid to be upstaged by him. So Hoover squashed his resume. He said, fuck this guy. He's not a good hire.
Damn.
Eliot Ness is transferred again in 1934, this time to Cleveland. It's actually for another promotion. He was now the head of the Alcohol Tax Bureau for the Cleveland area, which included all of northern Ohio as well. And he's loving every minute of this part of the job. He thought it was a great step in his career. And he was brought in for his expertise. And Eliot excelled in Cleveland, and he brought down many bootlegging operations using his experience from taking down Capone.
Did he finally start making that big money, those Chris Grover Clevelands?
Is that what is President Cleveland? Was that?
Oh yeah, his name is fucking Grover. He's got a fucking Muppet name, Sesame Street, whatever the fuck. No, Muppets. Right?
Maybe a Muppet has a presidential name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does kind of make sense with President Big Bird and President
Burton,
Fozzie Bear Wilson. Yeah. President Animal.
Vice President Animal, yeah. All right. So yeah, Elliot excels in Cleveland. He brought down many bootlegging operations using his experience from taking down Capone. This is where I first started hearing about Eliot Ness drinking. Not like he was an alcoholic, but more like socially with his squad. Like he would have a few drinks with the boys after work. And they all looked up to him because he was still kind of a pretty big name in the law enforcement industry, I guess. So everybody that worked for him
industry.
Yeah. I don't know. Everyone looked.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, unfortunately.
I know that's what it's like. I guess that's what because it's what it is.
Yeah.
But they all loved him. They all like thought he was a big hero, you know. In the first few months, Cleveland also where Elliot starts to question his profession though, because he was now like he went from taking down big gangsters, Capone, like guys like Capone. Now he's arresting people for having empty beer bottles. And that was one of the laws right after Prohibition. You had to destroy liquor bottles when you were done with them. Like they weren't allowed to have just sitting around. Okay.
Oh, probably had like tax stamps on the actual bottle themselves. And then when people bootlegging them and recapping them.
That's probably
That's
what it was.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was just thinking like, this is all about money now. Like, where's the moral high ground? How am I any better than the bootleggers? Really, all I'm doing now is just collecting money for the government. I don't like this job.
Well, the ATF got kicked around to so many different organizations for a while because nobody wanted them. At one point, they were only under the Treasury Department.
I bet you this is what the Alcohol Tax Bureau turned into, right? The ATF.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Now, this is where I start hearing about Elliot womanizing. The first time you start hearing about him banging floozies. Yeah. Apparently, he was flirty with, and I quote, anyone who wore a dress. That could have been a guy. That's all I'm saying. I could have just said woman. You didn't just have to say anybody in a dress. There's guys that do that. Then there's a new mayor of Cleveland elected in 1935, a guy named Harold H. Burton, and he was considered a reformist, and he was a controversial elect, and he vowed to change Cleveland. The mayor before that was just on a boat with a gangster not that long ago, and like one of their waitresses fell off the edge, and they called it an accident. Like, and this guy came in and he's like, I'm all for law and order. I'm here to change the city. I'm going to make everything better. Like, and everyone kind of went with it because it was a pretty big scandal at the time where the girl fell off the boat and died with the gangster friend. Vowed to change Cleveland. And at this time, Cleveland had a reputation of a city that couldn't enforce the law. Cleveland had what was called a safety director in charge of both the fire department and police departments. The guy who'd been doing this job in the past was like super corrupt. He was on the boat too, by the way. The safety director helped chuck the girl off.
Nice.
They weren't concerned, none of these police officers were concerned about any type of laws. There was a big gambling town. They were more into like lining their pockets with gambling money. Why the fuck would I stop that? So Burton fired that guy, vowed to hire a new safety director. Now Burton wanted to get the Attorney General, William D. Mitchell, to take over as the safety director. Mayor Burton even interviewed him and he thought he had him hired for sure. Mitchell rejected because he knew that the job was going to be exceptionally hard and he didn't like the politics that would be involved with the job as well. He just wanted to be the AG, which I feel like that's a very political job too. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's super political. Yeah.
I don't want any of these politics. Like, you know, I mean, like who and who should not be chucked off a boat. That's too divisive. You know what I mean? I'm not a political person. I don't talk about boat murders.
I just want to take down Capone. That's all the stuff I want to do. Cleveland had a reputation of being one of the worst crime cities in America. He knew he'd be underfunded too, because they just were in a depression, no money for any police officer or anything. He just didn't want to deal with the fucking hard job, honestly. So once they knew that Mitchell had declined the job offer, the press starts to speculate that Eliot Ness, the young prohibition hero, was going to be the next candidate. The mayor didn't think that at all. The mayor's like, what? No, I never said that. Eliot Ness, what? But then Burton starts to think like, maybe this is a good idea. And he takes the idea from the media and offers the 33-year-old prohibition agent the job. Burton was skeptical, but he also knew that if Eliot were to be appointed, he was going to shake up Cleveland's underground for sure. He knew all about the Untouchables. So at the age of 33, on December 11th, 1935, Eliot Ness was appointed the city of Cleveland's youngest ever director of public safety. For this job, he earned $7,500 a year. Between the fire and police department, Ness was in charge of nearly 2,000 people. First thing Eliot does is seek out his old professor to ask him some questions, August Vollmer. like I talked about him earlier, he was the father of modern law enforcement. Eliot knew if that he used the same tactics as he did to take down Capone, that it would probably work. So bashing heads and crashing into doors and doing that kind of stuff had to be done at first, but his goal, if he's going to be in this, was to professionalize the police force. So he needed Vollmer to help him modernize the force. So he got advice on how to start using modern techniques like soil and fiber analysis to solve crimes. Polygraph tests were introduced to him. He didn't really use them until later, but he did start to use them then. He was one of the first guys to use them. And also crime prevention, which wasn't a thought back then, like just getting kids off the streets and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like giving YMCAs a chance, shit like that, starting scout troops. That's what he ended up doing. He also wanted to change the entrance exam for the police force to make it slightly harder. So less goons get in and more smart people get in. Hire people with college education if preferable and bigger roles in the force. The modern techniques would slowly be put into place. And within the first year of being elected, Ness was nicknamed the Boy Scout or College Cop. So as soon as he calls up Vollmer, he realizes the first thing he needs to do, though, is to start weeding out the bad cops.
All right. If you're not a boy and you're not my age, get the fuck out of here.
He convinced Mayor Burton to let him hire a team of independent civilian investigators to look into the police and prosecute them if need be. So he went for the same tactic. Let's make a little small force, and I'll take care of these fucking corrupt assholes. And he also put it out there too, like first day on the job. If there's any police out there that want to rat out their colleagues, you'll give them full immunity and protection from the others if you do. Okay. Such a fucking shitty dad move. You know what I mean? The first person who tells it gets off. Don't get in trouble.
All right. There's one easy way out of this, you motherfuckers. Tattle. Who's gonna tattle?
So as he's doing this, Eliot's still a media whore, and they figure out that he's his new plan. And they start calling this new squad of police the Unknowns. So they're trying to make fun of the Untouchables. I love how the media is just making fun of them too. Like it's a play on the Untouchables, and ironic because everybody knew who the Unknowns were. It's not like it was like this big secret police force. And the Unknowns did take out many corrupt police. As soon as he does that, raids intensify. He starts doing raids on the bootleggers like he was doing before in Chicago. Through the first 18 months on the job, crime rate in Cleveland went down by approximately 25%. Juvenile crime dropped by 80%, mostly because he started scout groups all across the city with himself, other officers, and reformed gangsters becoming scoutmasters. This guy here is Anthony. He used to beat people's face in, but he said sorry. So here, take these 10 kids.
Oh my God.
Convictions were up 20%. Over 200 policemen were forced to turn in their resignations, while a few others were convicted and sent to jail.
Nice.
One of the articles about Eliot's achievements read, quote, Director Ness lifted fear from the hearts of the honest man. Cleveland is a better, cleaner, more wholesome place, a safer place in which to do business. So he was doing good in Cleveland. And after bringing crime rate down, this is when Eliot starts with the improvements in crime fighting and prevention techniques. So with all the success he already had in the city, he convinced the city council to give him some money so he could open a police academy. This is when the test to become an officer became harder. He started to do background checks for potential police. Cadets got a mandatory 2-year probation and tested their temperament and physical prowess. That's what Eliot's really held physical fitness in high regard. He was like always working out. He expected everyone to be in good shape, so he kept in good shape. You want to look like me?
Strong and quick so that people can't touch you.
You got to keep you looking like you're under 30. I know we're all over 30 now, but under 40.
If you can't be a boy my age, you got to look like a boy my age.
So by the fall of 1938, Ness had cleaned up the police force and lowered crime to a manageable point. Ness was beginning to look valuable in the private practice. And he'd been offered a few jobs in private practice, making tens of thousands of dollars. But he turned them down, stating that he wanted to stay a few years to show the world what an honest police force can accomplish. Now, in those couple of years when the police were a lot more reformed, he decided to take on traffic because traffic was a huge issue in Cleveland. And actually, traffic might be his biggest legacy, reforming traffic. Eliot took it upon himself to fix it. Eliot proposed a bunch of changes that in the traffic regard. So he created a separate court system for traffic violations. So he created traffic court. He ordered motorcycles to enforce traffic laws. So he bought some motorcycles. He also hired EMS and traffic patrol cars to help with all the shitty drivers and the injuries. And when Eliot first started the job, traffic-related deaths were sitting at 250 per year. But in 1939, Eliot had those down to 115 per year. After seeing the stats, Ness was awarded the American Legion's National Safety Award. Also, efficiency of officers was high on his list to reform as well. So Eliot instituted that two-way radios be in every squad car. So they never had radios in the car before. They would actually go to, they have little police stations all over like New York City. They would have to like hop to police station to get the next bit of answers. So he got, I think that's fucking super, like, as if you never thought of putting radios in the cars. He also modernized the office too. So we got typewriters, teletype, radio telegraph, and all that old technology to speed up all the paperwork, helping things rolling in the right direction. 6 ladies can type at the speed of 1 now that we've got this telegraph.
Wait, how does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. That's horribly inefficient.
No, the typewriters is what sped everyone up. They used to have to wait. Oh, especially the traffic department. When you'd get like a ticket, you'd be sitting in there while somebody would be like writing out your ticket or whatever. They just type them up really as fast as they possibly could. And it made traffic was a bad one. I don't understand why that was so hard to figure out, but Eliot did it.
Wait, yeah. How did they write you a traffic ticket out on the street? Did you have to like appear at the police station to receive the ticket that you were issued?
You didn't get
was there like a
tickets.
cop with like a typewriter in the fucking car? It's just like, all right.
I think before him, they would just arrest you, bring you down to the station, type you up a ticket, and send you on your way.
That sounds
Your
like
car
a
would be
fucking nightmare. Could you imagine
I
getting
agree.
arrested for speeding today?
I agree. That's probably why the radios were really good. They call in and be like, "This guy, Edward Johnson, I just gave him a ticket for whatever. If he doesn't make summons,
Yeah.
like,
Hey, we're beating the shit out of this guy. Come help.
yeah, exactly."
Yeah. Fucking 1930s police radio. Breaker, over. We're in a high-speed 33-mile-per-hour chase with cars are all the same, so a car, license plate number 4.
People have their own amateur radios, and they just hear the cops are beating the shit out of people, and they come and join in.
Eliot instituted probably one of the first police departments in America to hire black people. Eliot hired black people because he thought they would be better to patrol their own neighborhoods. So he was just too scared to go there. I find that there's some veiled racism in that, but it's like you said, you're right. It's so racist, it's progressive. So I don't know what to say. Eliot modernized the police to, in part, what it is today. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it was better than before. Like I said, most times changing the status quo doesn't make you friends, though. A lot of the time, people are resistant to change. So while trying to fight crime in Cleveland, Eliot made an enemy of the unions. He was trying to prevent the racketeering from all sides, from unions, gangster, anyone. He wasn't picking sides. He was neutral on the crime fighting thing. So unions were strong and they fought him at every end. Eliot would send policemen to bust up union activity from time to time. That's how much of a oh yeah, you want to racketeer here? I'll bust up this union. Yeah, the unions didn't like Eliot, but whatever. He got a lot done. And with all the good Eliot was doing, reducing crime rates, there's always that one that got away. Ness had a big one that got away. There was a serial killer active for quite some time during Eliot's tenure. The serial killer was dubbed the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Now, the murders are now more commonly known as the Cleveland Torso murders. The Torso killings are happening from 1935 to 1938. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything about the Torso killings because that's going to be our 3rd episode of the series.
But he was a suspect, right?
No.
Oh, he should have.
Will you please tell me that it's because someone was killing people with a torso?
Yes, that's exactly what he was doing. 100%. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you everything about it, but because it's subject of the 3rd, but I will tell you the basics so we can understand something that I think shaped Ness for the rest of his life beyond this. Most of his victims in this case were homeless people, and this case haunted Eliot. Since Ness wasn't solving this, he took help from not only the mayor, but also from the media. Mayor Burton told him to stop whatever you're doing and investigate this guy. So he ran a parallel investigation to the actual investigation that was going on. The last, I'm not going to get into everything, but the last few body parts that were chopped up into bits were left outside in his building in plain view of Eliot's office downtown. So Eliot thought the killer was taunting him, and he probably was. So Eliot did something drastic. Eliot ordered the smashing down of the homeless encampments to find the person. His logic was, if he's hunting in the homeless encampments, he must be either from the encampments or I can bust up his hunting ground.
We need to stop him from terrorizing these homeless people by terrorizing all of the homeless people first.
That's the nicest thing he did. So he rounds up all the homeless people that are there, tussing through their shit, looking for like some sort of hint. And anybody that didn't have a job or any prospects at all, arrested. Brought in the paddy wagon right to the station, questioned for hours on end.
My God, look at all of them. They all have torsos.
Any one of them could be a murder weapon. Any one of those torso weapons could kill any one of us. This is a dangerous room.
Bunch of torso-wielding monsters. Look at how they carry him all menacingly on those legs.
So he arrests all the homeless people, gets rid of everyone that's there. Then they get animal control people to come and take away all the pets that were in the homeless encampment, take them away, put them in shelters or whatever. Then he ordered the entire homeless encampment burnt to the ground. Eliot figured if he burned down the killer's hunting grounds, they wouldn't be able to work, wouldn't be able to do anything. Needless to say, this move was highly criticized by the media and the people of Cleveland. This is the first time in Eliot's career where he starts to lose the admiration of the Clevelandites, if not the world. Whoever heard about that, I would imagine is pretty pissed about it.
Well, like, I mean, beyond like the humanitarian issues surrounding that, which are absurdly heinous, can you fathom how bad that would smell?
Oh yeah, I knew that's where that was going, and I imagine there was a nice like corner of the city that was not traveled into for the next fucking month.
Oh my fucking God! You're just walking to work and just puking every day.
Just
yeah.
I own a dry cleaning business. It's great for me. And the fire and brimstone didn't work. It didn't really drum out anyone. So Eliot decides he's going to take another tactic. What he's going to do, he's going to get the fire marshals to go into each house near Kingsbury Run for fire code violations. Look for fire code violations. This was the way around him needing to get search warrants to get in people's houses. If their houses are... Yeah.
Cool. He found a constitutional loophole. What a great
So
guy.
that probably led to like them breaking up the police department and the fire department, huh? It sounds like this would be the reason that they
Eliot's this job for a long time after this.
I believe it, but people look back on it and they're like, oh, that was probably the wrong
yeah, probably. I don't know specifically why they got divided out, but you're probably right, honestly. They didn't find, he was looking for a kill room. He's like, you guys go in there, look for fire violations, but also a kill room. Never found a kill room, found a bunch of violations. So that kind of fucked over a bunch of people too.
But did like long-term beneficial effects, did he reduce the number of fires by chance? Do we know that?
I think when he made the giant like homeless person fire, he like negated his stats for the year. You know what I mean? That's like bigger fire than
cancel them out.
Yeah, kind of fucked him over trying to do that. All the work he's doing with the police, he wasn't doing work on his marriage with Edna. And Edna was kind of like, she got divorced. By 1939, Eliot and Edna get divorced. Edna had her heart broken for years. She just wanted to be a part of his life, but he was too consumed in his work and after work activities. And by after work activities, I mean, she suspected that he was banging chicks, and he was.
And it wasn't chicks.
Yeah.
And it's like he never forgave me for not being a boy his age.
Did they have any kids?
No, they didn't. They never did.
Damn. I just would have loved to read like the book by the son or something. Oh God, that would have been so great.
I mean, again, he wouldn't have kids because there's no way he can guarantee they'd be a boy and they'd never be his age.
Yeah, so now it's upgraded. Some of his fellow officers said that Eliot would, quote, screw anything in a skirt now. So it's not flirt anymore. He's screwing anyone in a skirt. Edna was more of like a homebody and didn't like to party like Eliot. Eliot, like by the 1939, he was partying like every night, going out with his boys, having a few drinks. I don't know. He partied so much that the press assumed Eliot was single, And on the front page of the newspapers, they called him the most Elliot bachelor in Cleveland. And he had a wife. Like, she just was at home.
They called him the most Elliot bachelor?
Eligible.
Oh.
Did I say Elliot?
It sounded like you said Elliot.
It wouldn't put it past me. When I get excited, I skip words.
No one can deny this bachelor's Eliot Ness.
Just him flexing. Yeah, Edna gets a divorce. She moves back to Chicago and never remarries. She keeps the name Ness and led a quiet and unassuming life until her death in 1994 at the age of 88.
Nice.
Elliot was probably full-blown cheating on Edna, to be honest. The only reason I say that is because by the fall of 39, Elliot marries again. He was only single for 10 months before he married Eveline McAndrew. She was an artist. She was married to a guy named McAndrew before Ness. I don't know what his first name was. I couldn't figure it out. Just McAndrew. He's McAndrew now. One name, last name. What are they doing?
One or the other?
Just blowing dogs. Okay.
Yeah. Dressing up like a dog and blowing themselves.
Eveline had just been divorced a month before they got married.
Are we sure it's not Evelyn?
It's Eveline.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Unless that guy who was doing pronouncing it was pronouncing it wrong. It could be Evelyn.
Interesting.
They got married quietly on October 14th, 1939. Elliot didn't want people to think poorly of him because divorce wasn't accepted in comments today, so he didn't invite anybody. He didn't want the press to slam him for getting divorced and getting remarried within a year. So she was the opposite of Edna. She liked to go out and party with Elliot at night. And after the two were married, she moved to Cleveland and got a job as a fashion illustrator at the Higbee's department store because Elliot got her a job. More nepotism. And Elliot and Evelyn, now you got me. It's Eveline is what the guy said. Now you're going to make me say Evelyn the whole time.
I think he might have been dumb.
It could be. She was a drunken mess. They were both a drunken mess during this marriage. They were Cleveland's power couple, though. Being famous was different back then. If you were a lawman like that, that's how you got famous. Not from movie guest stars were famous too, don't get me wrong. But Elliot Ness and her, Evelyn were both fucking super famous. They were the, what would you call it? Bougie people, the fucking rich.
Elite?
I guess, but famous because the same reason that What's Her Nuts is famous, fucking Kim Kardashian, for nothing, just because. Well, I guess he's doing law stuff too. But she's kind of an artist. I guess it's a little different, but it was just different. Now it's only movie stars and sports stars.
Yeah, it kind of still happens. Why should politicians be as famous as they are? Because it's weird, and I mean, I don't know how it is over there, but you see so many copy pastes of these Congress people in the media, and they're actually only representing a district of a few thousand people or something.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Because yeah, exactly. If it's only 20,000 people, that's not even a fraction of America's population.
Yeah.
But everybody knows his name.
Yep. It's because they're the loudest moron at a certain thing or whatever.
Yeah. It's usually the loudest moron who wants that job for sure.
Who knows why we deify people who don't deserve it?
Yeah, I just find it crazy that he's super famous. All he did was clean up corruption in a city. I feel like that should have been well, I say all he did, but he did a lot, honestly. Yeah. But I mean,
I think if you work for the government in any capacity, if for some reason you're not reelected or your contract isn't renewed, you should be publicly executed.
Yeah, 100% agree.
People can get not reelected for a lot of different reasons. It could be a negative reason. If Trump would have successfully turned the election onto his side, you know what I'm saying? Then the opposite, the counter to him, you're saying would be executed.
No. Just not if you don't get reelected. If you did bad enough job, it means you probably should be killed.
If you get impeached, there should be an extra option of straight to death. I'm on board with that, but just not getting elected again. It's kind of a
No.
I'm retiring. I just didn't want to be in the election. I thought I was done.
Right.
No. If you wanna peacefully,
you're saying if you're the incumbent and you run again, you better fucking win.
Yes, or else you die. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm cool with killing the old ones too. Just a burden on society. All right. Yeah. Even though Elliot was in the spotlight all the time, people couldn't catch him adultering, and he still was. He's still banging other chicks. I don't think Evelyn ever knew, but I'm assuming so, and I'll tell you why in a bit. And Eliot would be banging anyone, barely keeping it a secret, and the press wasn't snatching onto that, which I find weird. And he's also hammered all the time at this point. 1940, he starts getting real drunk. He had the theory of like, I work hard, I can party harder. And with that old fucking saying, like, you start to burn out, and that's what Eliot starts to do. In 1941, Frank Lausch was elected as mayor of Cleveland, and he took out our buddy Burton, who was a Republican. Lausch was a Democrat. And Burton was the one who basically made Eliot. Soon after Lausch was elected, Eliot's budget was axed by the newly elected Democratic mayor. And so ended the unknowns. And Eliot still kept his job, but the new mayor didn't think the budget should be as high, seeing as crime was now at a manageable spot. So the years go by, Eliot gets comfortable partying with his new wife, and life goes on. Eveline and Ness wanted children, but they also were unable to have children. So in 1942, Eliot gets in a car accident with Eveline in the passenger seat. No one's injured, but it looked bad because speculation was that either Eliot was drunk driving or Eveline was drunk driving. Both wouldn't look good on the covers of the newspapers. So supposedly, Eliot finally became touchable and covered it up. You could touch me now. You could touch me. The press got wind of the accident anyway and tried to report on it, but the police report was nowhere to be found. The guy who he got in an accident with Eliot got in an accident with, didn't want to press charges. So as it was no harm, no foul, Eliot didn't see a big deal, but the press didn't see it that way. The report was eventually found, and the media called it a cover-up, and Eliot denies it in the papers publicly. Honestly, it didn't matter. The public wanted a scandal for Eliot because he was always like Mr. High and Mighty. I'm the untouchable guy. It's a perfect person to slam down, right? In the media, someone that's always like highly regarded. You find out a big scandal, everyone wants to pay attention to that. That sells papers. So that scandal came out, and then another scandal broke. Young white ladies were caught having sex with black people for money. So then the press started to demonize Ness for not being tough on prostitution over his 6 years as safety director. Not only prostitution, all sexual crimes, sodomy, prostitution, gay sex. Since he wasn't tough on these crimes, it was surely Eliot's fault that the blacks were corrupting the nice white girls. You know, if Eliot just would have done something, these black guys wouldn't be having sex with our white prostitutes. How dare they? The scandal pretty much put him back into a big, huge, long blue mood. Pretty much broke him, honestly. Basically forced him out of his job as safety director. And I shouldn't say forced. He more like forced him to recognize that he didn't have the sway over the city like he once had. His moral authority had now dwindled. He lived off the Untouchables' reputation for years, but covering up a car accident made that much more fun for the media to scandalize. So that goes on for a little bit of time. Then World War II starts. And the U.S. starts spending $75 million a day on war preparedness. Eliot wants out of the safety director job because he figured he didn't deserve it anyway. I was never good at it anyway. After the scandals, he sees war looming in Europe, and he figures, you know what I can help with? The military. But he can't go to war because he's 40 now. So he applies for a job at the Social Protection Division of the military. Now, please try and guess what the Social Protection Division of the military would have been in 1942.
Keeps the gays out.
Good guess.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps the gays in.
No, it's not a good guess as you got it right. I just like the guess. Keeps the gays in. You stay here, Queen. You're with us.
Yeah, it really has big morality police vibes. So.
It is. It's such a fucking Eliot Ness job. So he's trying to get the director job of this. Social Protection Division was a division that was to help stamp out VD on military sites or people trying to join.
Great.
Many soldiers and potential recruits had symptoms of VD, which made them ineligible for service until they were cured. And penicillin wasn't not widely used at the time. And the current cure for syphilis was a mercury-based drug called salvarsan. Salvarsan made you sick for months after you took it, but it would kill off the syphilis. It would actually work, but
it would kill off everything in your body. But if you happen to survive, it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking, what do they call that thing that they try to use as a last resort on people with rabies?
It's that metal that they pump into the Wolverine, right?
Quicksilver.
Adamantium? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Weapon X.
Yeah. That's how they got the idea. This one dude came out with fucking claws because he had syphilis.
Fucking awesome. Yeah, never mind my thing. That's it.
Yeah, penicillin I thought was earlier than that, but it only became widely distributed in 1943, so it was a year before any of this stuff. So yeah, and the military knew that they were eventually going to get into war and they needed all the men they could get, so they figured Eliot or somebody would be in this social protection division of the military. So Eliot gets the job, and 1942 starts a fight VD the way he fought corruption in Cleveland by knocking down doors, pouring out booze. I'm just kidding. He made a little squad to infiltrate the brothels and figure out where the VD's coming from, who's giving it to who's got it, who needs to get rid of it. So he gets the force and he sends them in. They start to figure some stuff out. And then Eliot's used to having a gigantic budget to do whatever he wants. Unfortunately, it's the military on a shitty fucking part of the military. So the Social Protection Division could afford his little task force. So that only happened for maybe a couple months. And yeah, now he's thinking, like, how am I going to fight VD now? We're going to rethink this. He ends up as a speaker to the soldiers on the dangers of VD. So he would just be like, traveling from army base to army base, trying to tell everyone, you know what, this isn't a moral fight.
This is why you don't touch.
I hate that came full circle.
Bravo, my friend. Well done. Well
I'm
done.
pretty happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he would go around giving speeches saying, this isn't a moral fight. We just want to keep everyone healthy. And he traveled from army base to army base. He and Evelyn were living out a suitcase. Eveline Evelyn hated it. She despised this. She liked to be the socialite in town. During World War II, it was hard to get a place to live in Washington because that's where they had to move for their job. Because of the war, all of a sudden influx of people moving to DC was crazy. So there was a lot. You could get hotel rooms, but you were only allowed to like stay for 2 weeks and then you get kicked out. And this was a way of, like, I guess, making the people who could afford a house just like try and find one. I don't understand why they were kicking people out. Like, if there's money there, why do you care? I guess whatever. Anyway, so they're living out a fucking back of a car, hotel rooms, hotel to hotel. They're not having fun at night anymore. Evelyn wanted to have fun. Eveline, whatever the fuck her name is. The only thing they really kept from their old life was just getting hammered every night, like just drinking. So they just got fucking liquored every day. Eliot actually paid attention to Eveline, and he noticed that she was having a hard time with it. To satisfy her need to create art, Eliot suggests, like, hey, there's a good art school in Washington called the Corcoran College of Art and Design, and we'll enroll you. And she does enroll. While there, Eveline meets her new lover, a woman. So Evelyn, probably a lesbian the whole time. She met up with another woman there. That's why I don't think she cared about Eliot's womanizing. I think she was just like womanizing herself. When Eliot was safety director, she always had a female bodyguard with her wherever she went. So I'm guessing that was a female bodyguard. You know what I mean? That's 1940s code.
Yeah.
But she fell in love with this lady. She met her being like, she was one of her subject of her art pieces. The lady that comes in the middle of the room and like strips down so you can paint her. Like, I feel like that's a very cliche lesbian meetup story. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like it is.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Eveline hated the lifestyle she was in with Eliot, and she's now in love. So by the end of World War II in 1945, her and Eliot had gotten a divorce. And this is the quote that is in I don't know if this is from the book, actually. I think this is from the book, but not. It says, she packed up her fur coat, a champagne bucket, and little else, and was out of Eliot's life permanently. So she got a fur coat, a champagne bucket, and left. Like, that's this is the worst.
It's all you need, baby.
That's the worst storming out I've ever heard.
Vibing out as a lesbian in the 1940s, that's all you need.
After she left, she went to New York City, and she had a long career writing and illustrating kids' books. And she became pretty famous with that, actually. Some of her books are still around to this day. Like, I remember having one when I was a kid. Old book. It was probably like my mom's book when she was a kid, but yeah. So, but she did end up marrying again after that career, basically like mid-career in 1959 to a engineer named Arnold Bayard. And she's a drunken mess the whole time. I know they didn't like each other because her and Bayard stayed together for the rest of her life. Evelyn, but when she died in 1986, before Mr. Bayard, he had her cremated and her remains were just like left at the funeral place to just throw out. The guy didn't care at all. He just chuck them, please. So
Nice.
yeah, she was a drunken mess the rest of her life. She's got famous from her art, like famous-ish, but yeah, that's how she got just left at a funeral parlor, bag of dust. So let's just back up a bit here. So Eliot meets his third and final wife in late 1944. Still married, but he met her then. He broke up with his wife, and then they get married soon after on January 31st, 1946. This one was also a very quiet marriage. Her name was Elizabeth Michelow, or Betty, as she was known to everyone. She was 39 years old, so closer to his age. I'm sure he was like, you're good. You're my age. Betty was the...
You're halfway there.
You were really, yeah, there you go.
Why? He's only like 42.
Yeah, no, I just mean so all she needed to be was a boy. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the wrong
right.
half. I thought you were making fun of me. I'm like, no, I was right.
No. Yeah.
It sucks that you're a woman and touchable.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll take what I can get. You are in a skirt.
Betty was the only wife that Eliot later mentions in his book. That's the one I was talking about, The Untouchables, how she kind of like Betty just replaces Edna for some reason. Like Eliot's knew this job, like at the Social Protection Division, was only a wartime job, and the war was kind of wrapping up. So to get ahead of it, Eliot quits his job 2 weeks after D-Day, and he wants to get into business. He wants to start gathering money for his older years and figured business would be the spot to just do that. So in 1947, so he's starting businesses, but what's this? Take a little side trip here by accident. I should have reordered that. But Betty, right around this time, I couldn't figure out the exact date, so I put it here. But right around this time, Eliot and Betty adopt a baby boy.
Eliot's age.
They name him the child Robert Eliot Ness, or Bobby. He goes by Bobby. The couple moved back to Cleveland after Eliot got an offer to go work for the Diebold Company. Diebold's main product was a system that discharged gas into bank lobbies if the bank was being robbed. It was like a great, like that was a wicked tool for robbery prevention. You just like picking a lock and it's like fucking, it's a Joker plan. I love it.
Tear gas the fucking entire bank.
It's awesome. It's like a villain plan.
What's the most important thing inside of this bank? The people. No, dummy. The money. Keep up.
It's only if I'm not in there. Me, the money,
Yeah.
the people.
When someone robs this bank, all right, I'm telling you as the manager, you set off the poison gas, okay? Don't worry. If you need help, I will be just behind this airproof door. It's sealed around, so I can definitely hear you. And
you get danger pay if you do it. You get an extra $100 on your next paycheck. Like dead. Yeah, so I love that. It was a great fit, honestly, for them to hire Eliot Ness, America's crime fighter, so they made him chairman of the Diebold board. Like I said, he wanted to be the businessman, gather money for his old age, so he also starts a few of his own businesses. At this point, he's just a workaholic and a drunk. And at this point in his life, he's not really, just wants to work, wants to drink. He also wanted to be a better father to his son than his father had been to him, but Eliot always made work a priority over his family. At first with his job, he was pretty successful, but it didn't take long for his own businesses to go under and for him to get fired from Diebold. He just wasn't good at the job, honestly, as hard as he tried. In 1947, Eliot runs for the mayor of Cleveland, which I find hilarious. He almost ran in 1941, but decided not to because he didn't want to leave his job as safety director. When he was like, I just want everyone to see what a nice police officer can do in a city. You know what I mean? People were trying to get him to run for mayor then, but he's like, nah, I'm good. So now he decides 6 years later, when his fame is faded, Mayor Burton left for the Supreme Court. That's where Mayor Burton went, and Eliot was at the peak of his popularity. He probably wouldn't have won back then. By 1947, Eliot was kind of a joke in Cleveland, and he did not win. He lost the vote counts 2-1. It was 67%. The other guy, 33%. Eliot. Actually, it was like 32% and then 1% another guy. Eliot put most of his life savings into his campaign, and he was pretty in debt after the election. And then by 1951, after the election, Eliot's broke. He's got nothing. Still drinking like a fish. So between 1951 and 1956, Eliot worked many odd jobs to pay the bills. He was a bookstore clerk, wholesaler of electronics, frozen hamburger salesman.
How the fuck? How? Like,
I don't know.
Are they-
They don't go any further into it. Like I read a fucking book that was 400 pages on Eliot Ness. Literally one sentence about him being all those things. I'm like, no, more about the hamburger salesman. You can't tell me about the fucking intricate
well, it's
picking of locks or some shit, and you're not going to tell me about the hamburger. I hate you.
simple, Richard. They weren't hiring at the Thawed hot dog factory.
Yeah. 1956, Eliot gets another good job, actually a good paying job, working for a watermarking company called the Guarantee Paper. It was called Guarantee Paper. It was in Coudersport, Pennsylvania.
Fuck yeah. I'm going there on Thursday for the bachelor party.
Coudersport?
Yeah, my family has a cabin there.
Nice.
Oh,
So yeah.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
it does not sound like a hip happening town.
It's not. There's nothing happening there. There's barely a town.
Yeah,
Cool.
these guys at Guarantee Paper, they saw Eliot Ness and went, "You're that guy? You're Eliot Ness? Yeah, we'll hire you." They thought that him bringing his address book would bring in some pretty big name clients. I didn't think he was good at anything. He was just a salesman. Got a good pay.
Yeah,
though.
it has really big like failed like like college basketball star applying energy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure. For
like
sure.
they pick up, they're like, huh, he's got the same name as what the fuck? Let's call him, and holy shit, it's him. Flash forward 3 months, the novelty's worn off, and they're like, look, all right, we're sick of your shit.
It's not even that. It's close though. So him and his family, once he gets a job, move up to Pennsylvania, start the next chapter of their lives. Eliot was on sales calls all day, and no one wanted to buy any of the watermarking technology his company provided. They claimed it wasn't as good as what was already on the market. Whatever you're selling, Eliot, is trash. I've got better stuff. Most of his old colleagues that he called felt sad for Eliot. They thought he was like pathetic, like as if you're doing this job. This is very sad of you. Nobody even pity bought though. That's the funny part. Nobody was like, "Oh, well, I'll buy one." Nothing. Guarantee Paper was mostly a sham, and Eliot didn't know this though. So whatever money he had left, saved over there, he invested in the company. So when Guarantee Paper finally fell, Eliot was not only jobless but highly in debt. During this time at Guarantee Paper, Eliot frequented a local bar to get smashed by himself. He would always love telling stories of the good old days when he was taking down Al Capone in Chicago to the regulars. An author named Oscar Fraley heard him lamenting on the past and approached the old Prohibition lawman. Fraley wanted to write a book on his exploits against America's toughest gangster. During this time, Eliot's name had faded, but Al Capone's name was a household name. He was known as the guy that beat the best gangster in America, made so much money. Al Capone died in 1947. Rich, living in Florida. Sure, he was crazy from syphilis, and we'll talk about all that later, but he died loaded, having fun. Just so everybody knows. So yeah, Eliot was like kind of sad, pathetic nobody knew who he was anymore. He started faded. Oscar Fraley, though, loved his stories. So Fraley wanted to write a book about his exploits. Eliot agreed, and they both began writing a biographical account of his times in Chicago. Eliot would write some pages, then send them to Fraley. Problem was, Eliot had a hard time remembering the good old days in detail, forgetting names and addresses and things that he did and people he worked for and people who worked for him. So Fraley would take those pages and fill in the blanks. Like I said, the book would eventually be published and entitled The Untouchables and would sell 1.5 million copies. But this wasn't until after Eliot's death on May 16, 1957, of a heart attack in his Pennsylvania home. He was 54 years old. And when Eliot died, the hype around his life had subsided, and very few people knew who he was. When the book was selling like mad, America fell in love with Eliot once again, but he never got to see this. There wasn't even mention of Eliot's death in the Chicago or Cleveland newspapers. He had been that forgotten about. He was so in debt that at the time that Betty didn't have enough money to bury him, so she cremated him and kept him in the garage. Yeah. He was survived by his wife Betty and his son Bobby, but they both died young as well.
Oh no.
Bobby was diagnosed with leukemia in early 1976 and died shortly after.
Oh, fuck.
On August 31st. Betty died the year after on November 4th, 1977 of cancer. Bobby had a wife. She kept all the ashes, mixed them all together, in fact, into one big bag. And yeah, they had no surviving relatives, really.
Threw it into a machine and created a Cronenberg-like Nessian
not exactly. It just sat in a garage, mixed in. And in 1997, I guess some historians were digging out his old niece's place, and they found the ashes, and they brought the bag of the three people's ashes to Wade Lake to be spread near the Lakeview Cemetery, where a monument listing his accomplishments has been erected and is a very popular spot for people to visit to this day. Now, while the Untouchables sold many copies, like I said, it's filled with many historical inaccuracies, but is considered to be broadly accurate, which is a broad statement. That doesn't matter, though, because Hollywood made a TV show called The Untouchables, starring Robert Stack in 1959, and a movie starring Kevin Costner in 1987. When Eliot died, he was nearly $9,000 in debt and never got to see himself become the household name that he is today. Not only are there
$9,000, amateur.
This probably equals out. Look, 1951 or whatever. I bet you it's
fucking happy I'd be to be $9,000 in debt.
That's how much your teeth are going to cost.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's a fucking low blow, dude. You know that bothers him.
The proximity that you are to the actual price is astounding.
Not only are there TV shows and movies made about the life of Eliot, there's beers named after him, there's a festival in his honor, and museums dedicated to him. True American icon for the time, I believe that. Now, what you'll come to find out in the next episode on Al Capone, that he led a much different life and things maybe ended up a bit better for him. Crime pays, I guess. I don't know. Being a shitty cop, that little narc cop didn't really pay out well for him, but he's remembered. He's around. So that's Eliot Ness.
Wow.
We got to kind of talk about him to be able to solve the crime of the torso murders, because I feel like needing backstory on Eliot Ness was necessary. So let's keep this in the bank for some fucking evidence for later. What do you think? Why do you think he became a big drunk like that, Rick? Let's hear your answer on that. That's gonna be the mystery we solve.
Why do I think he became a big drunk?
Yeah, how come he slipped? How come he slipped so badly? What do you think was the moment where he just, was it hubris? Was it like boredom? Was it like always in him? What was it? What made him?
Yeah, I think he always had that motherfucking dog in him, you know?
I was not expecting that at all. I know what you mean, yo. I know what you mean, yo.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I got you, yo.
Hard R, wow.
Brother?
Yeah.
I can't say brother?
You can. It was just aggressive with the hard R.
Oh my god. Okay. I don't know how to not be racist anymore. I just say words.
I just wait to be accused.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was that. You guys got any more? Usually this is fun to like break it down and like make up theories, but that's not how this goes today. Unless you got theories on why he got fucked up. You think that's in him the whole time, bro?
I don't know. I think, well, he fought so hard against, alcohol in general. What I'm gonna say is like he was just, at some point was like, all right, let's see what this is all about. And then he was like, I'm fucking about this shit. I'm about it. Woof woof.
If we find a quote, I just want to see that in quotes next to his picture.
Honestly, that's how the episode's ending. We don't need to say anything else. Do you got any final thoughts there, RJ? You got anything you want to say about?
I mean, like, he was a cop, so he automatically sucked. And then add to that, I think he just always was a piece of shit and a hypocrite. So, Like I guarantee you, like any he very much has the energy of like would tell on people proactively for things that like you know, like the kid who like tells on people in school and the teachers are like just annoyed that the fact that they're even having to interact with this kid. They're like, I don't care. Like, fine, yes, yeah, they did a bad thing. Okay, like that's
Yeah.
what that guy's all about. Very much like I saw he said a bad word in lunch on Tuesday and
Yeah, I find it. A thing I find really interesting is how we just glaze over how much of a cock he was in this later part of his life. And actually, he did a lot in Cleveland too. But like, all you really know is how he took down Al Capone. That's how famous Al Capone is. You know, he made the police officer that arrested him famous. That's what I think. I don't think if with sans Al Capone, this guy would be another nameless, faceless police officer.
Yeah, and who's to say that like the way that he did a lot of that shit wasn't wildly fucking unethical, like beyond even the things that we know that are unethical. Like, you know, like look at fucking Rudy Giuliani. Like everyone adored him. He was, you know, America's mayor, and because he like helped take down the mob in New York. Well, guess who fucking swooped in and took over? Just like a bunch of more fragmented, like mostly the Russian mob. And now, almost verifiably, Rudy Giuliani is just owned by Russia. Like, he's a complete fucking joke. Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah, if
he always sucked.
I feel like if 9/11 didn't happen, Rudy Giuliani would just be another New York City mayor, honestly.
Exactly. 9/11 too is another. Yeah, that's exactly what put him, you know, to stardom. He would have been fucking nothing without it. And I mean, not even nothing. He would have been like, he really could have just fucking coasted. But like these people, they always had. Rick's right, actually. He always had that dog in him. He was always a piece of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Woof, woof. And I think the worst part about 9/11 was bringing prominence to Rudy Giuliani, right?
Yeah.
The worst thing about 9/11.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Oh no, it killed 2,000 New Yorkers. Boo.
Says the
you know how many of them there are?
I just find that an interesting like way to get famous. You know, it's like the Monica Lewinsky sucked a dick to become famous. You know what I mean? Like you could become famous off somebody.
She became infamous though because people fucking hate women, you know? She like is hated by people, like hated.
She is not. She is pitied by lots, many.
Bullshit.
I mean, like now more so, but yeah, I mean, people fucking dragged her. I mean, like, how did a president like Clinton's still positively viewed by the left, which is completely wrong. I mean, not like
his wife,
the good version of the left. Yeah. It's very very odd how. I mean, I agree, like with both of you to some extent, but like. I'm more like I don't think she like sucked a dick to get famous. I think she sucked a dick to suck the president's dick because honestly, mad respect. That's cool.
Yeah,
but like
not to get famous. I don't think Eliot Ness took down Al Capone to get famous. What I'm saying is, it's funny how
Al Capone's dick to get famous.
somebody else's thing, like somebody else's life can make like shine and light on somebody else's life to make them famous. I find that super interesting. You know what I mean? Like that's so.
Yeah.
Had it not been for like one event or one thing, like Giuliani would be just, if it wasn't for 9/11, or, you know, there's other people that just peripherally get famous from these big world things. I can't think of any other good examples, but that's just interesting that happened that way. Because Eliot Ness kind of boring, kind of just an old drunk, really at the end of his life, kind of a waste of.
All right. I mean, relax. You're really attacking future me here. Fuck.
You're Eliot Ness?
he's gonna
no. Just you know, the potential like drinking and end of life type of, you know, stages there.
Yeah.
I'm not early stages of Eliot Ness. I'm late stage Eliot Ness.
Back off him. He's got.
I'm a late stage early bloomer Eliot Ness.
I'm on my third divorce here, Richard. By Eliot Ness measurements, I'm almost dead.
Yeah, he's got another 30 years before his heart attack.
Do you play Roblox?
Oh yeah, they didn't say how much in debt he was in because of Robux.
Oh no, he found 3 Richards. You're like me. You're like me. You're like me. Uh-oh, we're the Untouchables right now, and Rick's going to kill himself with booze. This is fucked up.
Shit.
I just watched Private Dicks, and I think RJ's the funniest.
What? Come on.
Oh yeah, that's the
Are you bored?
Goldfish.
No. I was watching RJ, and then I saw like something swim past his head.
Yeah, there's a 13-year-old goldfish in that tank.
Is it 13 years old, or is that what Misty keeps telling you when she replaces the dead one so you don't cry?
Oh my God, that's terrible, Richard. Don't say that. How could you? That's tantamount.
He always had a
to saying
suspicion, and you just
that
confirmed
she's
it.
flipping money under my pillow whenever I lose my teeth now, and that the tooth fairy isn't real. And you might say, why am I still losing teeth at 31? But